illusion of being untouchable. Have you ever wished you could become someone nothing could break? Someone who doesn't flinch when criticized, who stays calm when rejected, who seems immune to betrayal, to loss, to heartbreak? You tell yourself that one day you'll finally stop feeling so much that the storm inside you will quiet down, that the walls you've built will be enough to protect you from the chaos of the world. You imagine a version of yourself who walks through life untouched, untouchable. But deep down, beneath that image of control, there's a quiet truth you can't escape. You are tired. Tired of pretending that indifference is strength. Tired of holding yourself together so tightly that you can no longer breathe. Tired of playing the role of the unshakable one while your heart still trembles behind the mask. This right here is the silent wound of modern human psychology. We equate numbness with mastery and repression with peace. But Carl Gustav Jung saw it differently. He wrote that we are not what happens to us, but what we choose to become. And what most people have become is defended, not free. Because as long as you avoid pain, pain becomes your master. As long as you numb yourself to survive, you remain a prisoner of every word, every silence, every absence that touches the wound you never faced. You may look strong from the outside, but inside you are fragile precisely because you have armored yourself too well. This is the paradox at the heart of Carl Jung philosophy. The more you try to escape suffering, the deeper it buries itself into your unconscious. And there, in that dark place beneath awareness, it grows quietly, shaping how you love, how you fear, how you react, how you sabotage your own peace. This video is not about becoming harder. It's not about becoming cold, distant, or indifferent. It's about remembering that true strength is not the absence of feeling, but the full awareness of who you are, even when you are bleeding. Because Jung taught that the soul's wholeness can only emerge when the light and the shadow meet, when the conscious mind stops running from the dark mirror of the self. And that meeting is where inner healing truly begins. So if you are here, listening, perhaps it's because some part of you is done pretending. Perhaps you are ready to stop surviving and start seeing, to stop suppressing the ache and start listening to what it's been trying to tell you. Nothing and nobody will ever stop hurting you until you learn to see that what hurts is not the world, but what the world awakens inside you. And once you see that, once awareness replaces avoidance, pain loses its power. This is not about perfection. This is about liberation, the kind that comes when you finally surrender the illusion of being untouchable and learn to become whole instead. Pain is not the enemy. Pain sits quietly beside you, not as a punishment, not as a curse, but as a messenger that has been waiting for you to finally stop running. From the first time you were told to be strong, you learned to silence your pain, to lock it away, to make yourself smaller, quieter, harder. You convinced yourself that strength meant not feeling, that maturity meant endurance, that to survive you must suppress. And maybe that worked for a while, until it didn't. Because what you resist persists. Carl Gustav Jung wrote those words as a mirror for the modern soul, a reminder that the emotions you bury don't disappear. They sink into the depths of your unconscious, into what he called the collective unconscious, the vast psychological ocean, where every unhealed wound continues to breathe beneath awareness. When you reject your suffering, you are not escaping it. You are only exiling it, and every exile eventually finds a way home. It returns through anxiety that has no clear cause, through sadness that arrives in the middle of a bright day, through a sharp word from someone you love that cuts far deeper than it should. That is not the world hurting you, that is the pain you once refused to feel, now asking to be seen. Most people spend their entire personal growth journey trying to eliminate pain, as if the absence of discomfort equals peace. But Jungian psychology reveals something far more paradoxical. The doorway to healing is built from the very stones we stumble on. Pain is not your enemy, it is your compass. It points toward the place within you that still needs light. In the language of Carl Jung philosophy, suffering is the voice of the self, the totality of who you are calling you back toward wholeness. Every tear, every heartbreak, every loss is an initiation into a deeper knowing of yourself. To run from pain is to run from transformation, to sit with it, to breathe through it, to ask it what it wants to teach you. That is where inner healing begins. Pain, when ignored, becomes chaos, but pain, when understood, becomes alchemy. It burns away illusions. It humbles the ego that believes it can control everything. It strips away the false certainty that life should always be gentle. And in that burning, you meet yourself raw, trembling, unguarded, alive. Carl Jung Shadow Work invites us into that fire, not to be destroyed, but to be purified. Because true freedom doesn't come from protecting yourself from the world. It comes from discovering that what you thought would destroy you was always meant to wake you. If you look closely, you'll see pain doesn't come to break you. It comes to break what is false within you. It is not the end of the path. It is the beginning of awareness. So, the next time pain returns, don't turn away. Invite it to sit down. Listen to it like an old teacher with weathered hands. It may whisper truths that your mind has long forgotten. That the ache you feel is not a flaw, but a doorway. And when you finally walk through it, when you let yourself feel what you once feared, you will discover that what you called pain was really your soul trying to bring you home. The wound within, where pain truly lives. You believe that what hurts you lives out there, in what people said, in how they left, in what never came back. But pain doesn't live outside of you. It lives where the world touches something that was already open. Every harsh word, every betrayal, every silence, they only awaken a wound that was waiting to be seen. What truly hurts is not what was done to you, but what it reminded you of. The ancient ache of not being enough, the child inside still begging to be chosen. This is where Carl Jung Shadow Work begins, in realizing that the enemy you keep fighting out there has always been the forgotten part of you within. Jung once wrote, "The most terrifying thing is to accept oneself completely, because to do so means facing the parts of you that you have spent a lifetime trying to hide. The needy, the jealous, the ashamed, the terrified, the too sensitive. Yet these are not your flaws. They are your fragments. Each one carries a story that never found its ending." According to Carl Jung philosophy, the wound itself is an archetype, an eternal pattern inside the collective unconscious that repeats until it is brought to consciousness. That is why history seems to replay in your relationships, why you keep meeting the same type of pain in different faces, why love turns into abandonment, why silence feels like rejection, why being unseen cuts deeper than being alone. You are not cursed. You are being shown the map back to your inner healing. This is the paradox of human psychology. The moment we stop blaming the world, we begin to see the world as a mirror. Every encounter, every disappointment, is life saying, "Look here, this is where it still hurts." So pause, before you rush to fix yourself, before you armor up again. Ask instead, what part of me is still waiting to be met? You may find that beneath your anger lies sorrow, Beneath your control lies fear. Beneath your pride, a longing to be held. And when you trace your pain back to its root, you will see something miraculous, that your suffering has never been against you, it has always been for you. Carl Gustav Jung believed that the psyche seeks wholeness. The way a plant seeks light, it will push through any soil, any crack, any darkness, to reach what it was always meant to become. That is the personal growth journey, the slow, sacred return to yourself. When you stop judging your pain and start listening to it, you no longer collapse into it. You begin to understand. And understanding is liberation. Because the moment you see your wound, it stops ruling you from the shadows. You no longer react blindly to every sting. You respond consciously, and that is where healing begins. So remember, what hurts is what still seeks your love. Every wound is an invitation to turn toward yourself, to become the parent your younger self once needed, to meet the part that still cries for home. Pain does not ask you to harden, it asks you to soften, to open your hands and hold what is real. Because the wound within you is simply life asking to be felt again. The unconscious, the real battlefield. You think the war is outside. You think the battle is between you and the world, between you and the people who hurt you, between you and the life that never turned out the way you hoped. But the real battlefield is within. It's not out there. It's in the silent, unseen territory of your unconscious mind. Carl Gustav Jung said, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate." The unconscious is not a vague idea. It's an entire ecosystem of memories, fears, desires, and archetypes, the ancient intelligence of the psyche that moves beneath awareness. It holds everything you've ever experienced but couldn't process, every emotion you denied, every truth you weren't ready to face. This is what Jung called the shadow, the part of you that holds everything you disown in order to survive. Your jealousy, your rage, your envy, your shame, even your beauty, the kind you were told was too much. And as long as you keep these parts in the dark, they rule you from there. The more you repress them, the louder they become. They show up in the people you attract, the fights you repeat, the mistakes you swear you'll never make again. You call it bad luck, you call it destiny, but it's neither. It's your unconscious trying to wake you up. The collective unconscious goes even deeper. It's the shared inheritance of all human souls, the myths, instincts, and archetypes that shape what it means to be alive. Inside, you live the same forces that lived in your ancestors, in their fears, their hopes, their wars. That is why when you suffer, it feels ancient, as if the pain didn't start with you, because it didn't. Jung's journey through the Red Book was his own descent into this dark ocean. He faced visions, voices, and symbols that came from the depths of the psyche. He wrote that who looks outside dreams, who looks inside awakes. And that awakening is terrifying, because it means entering the underworld of your own mind. When you start to do this work, this Carl Jung Shadow Work, you begin to see how every external situation mirrors something inside. The partner who dismisses you, the friend who betrays you, the loneliness that never leaves. Each one is an image from your unconscious, asking you to meet it consciously. This is where human psychology stops being theory and becomes truth. Because it's not about fixing yourself, it's about seeing yourself entirely. Every pattern, every projection, every unspoken fear. You are not broken. You are complex. You are a living constellation of light and shadow, both reaching for each other, trying to remember they were never separate. To know this is to begin inner healing, not by forcing change, but by allowing awareness. The unconscious doesn't dissolve through control. It transforms through compassion. When you meet your darkness with understanding, it stops needing to scream for attention. And so, the next time something in life triggers you, pause. Don't ask, "Why is this happening to me?" Ask, "What is this showing me?" Because the war you're fighting is not against people or fate or the world. It's the timeless conflict between what you know about yourself and what you've refused to see. And that is why the unconscious is the real battlefield. The place where the soul fights not to win, but to wake. The place where your freedom begins, the moment you stop defending yourself and start remembering who you really are. The Alchemy of Pain. Pain changes form when you stop running from it. It ceases to be punishment and becomes instruction. It stops being the wound and becomes the doorway. This is the beginning of alchemy, the sacred process where what once broke you becomes what makes you whole. Carl Gustav Jung wrote, "One does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious." These words are not poetry, they are a map. The darkness is not evil. It is everything you have not yet learned to love in yourself. The moments you silenced, the needs you buried, the grief you never allowed to speak. When you finally stop resisting pain and begin to witness it, something remarkable happens. The energy that once held you hostage starts to serve you. You begin to see that every collapse, every heartbreak, every night of despair was never an end, but a kind of inner initiation. Pain is not the enemy of your soul. It is its oldest teacher. It burns away illusion, melts false strength, and humbles the ego that believes it knows what life should look like. In Carl Jung philosophy, this is the process of transformation, the nigredo, the dark night of the soul, where the old self dissolves and a new awareness begins to form. It is not comfortable. It is not safe, but it is real. When life takes everything you thought you needed, when you are stripped bare of control, that is when you begin to see what was never yours to lose. The silence that follows is not emptiness. It is truth revealing itself. This is human psychology beyond intellect. It's not about fixing symptoms. It's about surrendering to meaning. It's the realization that suffering was never against you. It was the psyche's way of calling you back home. Pain has always been trying to show you what you've outgrown. The job, the relationship, the identity, the masks that once kept you safe but now suffocate you. To outgrow pain is to outgrow the version of yourself that still needed it. In the collective unconscious, this transformation appears in every myth. The hero descends into darkness, faces the dragon, and returns with the treasure. That treasure is consciousness, the light born from what was once shadow. Your personal growth journey follows the same archetypal path. You are both the hero and the dragon. The treasure you seek is buried beneath your own fear. So when the pain returns, and it will, do not ask, "Why me?" Ask instead, "What is this trying to transform in me?" Because the moment you stop seeing suffering as punishment and start seeing it as purification, you begin to taste freedom. You discover that true healing doesn't come from avoidance, but from integration, from the courage to feel fully, to let life dismantle everything false, so that only what is real can remain. This is Carl Jung Shadow Work at its purest, turning darkness into awareness, fear into wisdom, pain into power. You are not here to escape the fire. You are here to become it. And in that burning, you will discover what Jung called the gold in the shadow, the light you've been searching for, hidden in the very places you once feared to look. Individuation, becoming whole. When the fire quiets, something in you begins to rise, not as who you were, but as who you've always been, beneath the noise. This is the stage Jung called individuation, the sacred unfolding of the self, the process of becoming whole. To individuate is not to perfect yourself, it is to reclaim yourself. It is to gather the lost pieces of your being and bring them back into one living consciousness. In Carl Jung philosophy, individuation is the soul's deepest purpose. Everything that breaks you, humbles you, awakens you, serves this one hidden aim, to make you real. Most people live as fragments of themselves, chained to roles, personas, images, carefully built for love and acceptance. They mistake adaptation for authenticity. They become what the world rewards and forget who they are when no one is watching. But life, in its mysterious compassion, eventually takes away everything that isn't true. Every illusion you use to survive must die, so that the self, your original nature, can finally breathe again. Jung wrote, "Individuation is not a process of improvement, but of integration." You don't become better, you become more complete. You begin to see that every weakness hides a gift, every shadow conceals light, and every contradiction in you was never a mistake. It was the soul trying to know itself. This is the quiet miracle of Carl Jung Shadow Work. When you stop chasing perfection and begin to embrace complexity, you realize that wholeness is not the absence of wounds, but the courage to keep your heart open while carrying them. The ego will resist this. It will tell you that to be whole, you must be in control. That strength means never trembling, that love means never needing, that peace means never feeling. But the self whispers otherwise. It says, to be whole is to be human, to feel deeply, to forgive slowly, to stay tender even after being broken. The archetypes within you, the child, the warrior, the lover, the sage, begin to awaken and find their balance. They stop fighting for dominance and start dancing together in harmony. This is not a battle anymore. It is a reunion. The collective unconscious has always carried this pattern. The fall and return, the death and rebirth, every myth, every symbol in the Carl Jung Red Book points to this eternal rhythm of becoming. You are living it now, and though this path may look lonely from the outside, it is not loneliness you feel, it is sovereignty. You are no longer seeking others to complete you because you have met yourself at last. This is inner healing at its deepest. The moment when pain turns into peace, when silence feels like home, when the world still moves in chaos, but something inside you remains unmoved. This is not the end of your personal growth journey. It is the beginning of real life. A life lived from the center, not the surface. And once you have touched that center, once you have known that stillness, nothing outside of you has the power to destroy you again, because you no longer live through your wounds. You live through your awareness. You are no longer divided. You are whole. Consciousness as the only shield. There comes a moment when you stop asking, will it ever stop hurting? And begin to see that the question no longer matters, because consciousness changes everything. Awareness is the only shield that never breaks. Not armor, not walls, not indifference, but clear, grounded presence, the kind that sees without running, feels without drowning, loves without losing itself. Carl Gustav Jung taught that what you resist persists. What you accept transforms. This is the essence of Carl Jung philosophy, that freedom is not the absence of suffering, but the understanding of it. When you become conscious, you no longer need life to be painless. You only need it to be true. The world will still move in its cycles, Love will fade, people will leave, plans will fall apart, but something within you remains unmoved, watching from the still center of the storm. That stillness, that silent awareness, is your real protection. In the language of human psychology, this is emotional immunity. You still feel, but you no longer collapse into the feeling. You still care, but you no longer confuse caring with control. You still love, but you no longer lose yourself in love. Pain becomes information, not identity. Triggers become teachers. Loss becomes liberation. When you live from this state of consciousness, nothing outside of you has the power to define you anymore. No rejection can diminish you. No betrayal can destroy you. No silence can erase your worth, because you finally see that everything external is only a reflection of something internal. And once you have met that reflection with awareness, it loses the power to wound you. This is the end of victimhood and the birth of vision. You are no longer reacting to the past. You are creating from presence. This is what Jung called individuation completed. The moment when ego and self are no longer enemies, when shadow and light coexist without war. You have descended into the depths and returned with the treasure of understanding. The collective unconscious still moves within you, but now you move with it consciously. You are not pushed by hidden forces anymore. You flow with them as if dancing with the rhythm of your own soul. This is not transcendence, it's embodiment. It's the quiet confidence of knowing I can hold both the beauty and the pain and remain whole. That is true inner healing. That is Carl Jung, shadow work fulfilled, not escaping life, but entering it fully, awake. And so, when life tests you again, and it will, don't close off, don't harden. Simply return to presence, breathe, observe, remember who you are. Consciousness is the final alchemy. It turns suffering into understanding, fear into depth, and wounds into wisdom. Nothing and nobody can truly hurt you again. Not because pain disappears, but because you have learned to meet it with eyes wide open. That is what it means to be untouchable, not invincible, but aware, not armored, but awake. Awakening as a daily choice. Now you know. Nothing outside of you was ever the real threat. It was never the words, never the silence, never the people who left. It was the part of you that believed you were powerless before them. But you are not powerless. You are simply awakening, slowly, painfully, beautifully, to the truth that awareness itself is freedom. Carl Gustav Jung wrote, "There is no coming to consciousness without pain." And yet, he also taught that consciousness is not a single moment of enlightenment. It is a daily choice. To awaken once is insight. To awaken every day is devotion. You do it in small ways. Each time you pause before reacting, each time you breathe instead of blame, each time you choose to feel instead of flee. This is Carl Jung Shadow Work made real, not in theory, but in the practice of living. It is the way the soul reclaims its light, one honest moment at a time. So when the world tests you, when someone disappoints you, when the old wound whispers again, when fear returns like an old shadow, remember this: you are not back at the beginning. You are being invited to choose awareness again. That's what awakening really is. Not a destination, but a rhythm, a way of breathing through life with open eyes. And maybe that's what it means to be untouchable. Not to feel nothing, but to be so deeply rooted in presence that even when the storm comes, you remain clear. If something in this journey spoke to you, let it move deeper than the mind. Let it become the way you live. In the comments, write these words: I choose awareness. Let it be more than a phrase. Let it be a promise to yourself. Because this is not just your story, It is the story of all of us, every soul trying to remember itself through the mirrors of pain and love and loss. This is the shared path of inner healing, the great work of our time, and together we are walking it. So stay with this journey. Keep going. Each video, each reflection, each silence between words is another step back to wholeness. As Jung said, who looks outside dreams, who looks inside awakes. May you keep looking within, may you keep awakening, and may you never again forget that nothing and nobody can ever truly hurt you. Once you have found the peace that lives inside your own awareness,